Well, hello Sonic State. This is Amos from Moog Music, and I'm here at NAMM 2013 providing a sneak preview, special introductory look at the Moog Sub Phatty analog synthesizer. And you're the first to get an in-depth look at it here at the show. It's actually the day before the NAMM show proper, and so we'll be going deep into the details of the sonics, the electronics, and the control of the Sub Phatty synthesizer. And so I'll just tell you as much about it as you can stand to hear and follow along and enjoy, won't you?
Yeah.
All right, so to begin with, this is a member of the Phatty synthesizer family from Moog. We started with the Little Phatty Bob Moog Tribute Edition years ago, and the Stage 1 and 2, and the Slim Phatty. And this is the latest member of the family and has a lot in common with its predecessors. But at the same time, we've also brought in a lot of new technology and new features to really make this the state of the art for what Moog is doing right now with analog monosynths. And so what we have here is we have two free-running voltage-controlled analog oscillators, 1 and 2, and they have a footage setting from 16 to 2 foot. So this is not just a baseline synthesizer, this is a full-range performance instrument. In addition to oscillators 1 and 2, we have a sub-oscillator, which is a square wave, an octave below oscillator 1. It's a sub-oscillator of oscillator 1. And we have a specially voiced noise circuit, pure analog noise directly into the mixer in the signal path. So those are our complement of sound sources. Additionally, I should mention there is an external audio input, as with the other Phattys, which allows you to take any other sound in your studio, any other instrument, drum lines, plug-in synthesizers, anything you like, and run it into the mixer section so that you can take advantage of the Moog filter and a multi-drive circuit on any recorded material that you have.
This is new, the multi-drive.
Multi-drive is a new circuit. It's not dissimilar to the overload in the Phatty series, but it is fundamentally a new circuit, and we'll go into the details of how it's similar and how it differs. We really paid a lot of attention to the gain staging in the signal path of the Sub Phatty so that you can get everything from extremely pure, extremely clean sounds to multiple flavors of grit, distortion, overdrive, and we'll go into the details of that in a moment. So to start with, I'll just explain the gain staging and the multi-drive circuit. In the mixer section, we took our cues from the Mini Moog Model D, where in their case, due to a design mistake, the legend has it, the actual gain in the mixer going into the filter could get much hotter than they'd originally intended, which allowed you to get a pre-filter saturation sound that is just a well-known part of the classic Mini Moog tone. In our case, we knew that that was a possibility from the outset, so we intentionally designed the gain so that up at about 12 o'clock gives you a clean sound, and as you increase the mix up to 12, not 10 here, the reason for the 12 designation is because that is providing overdriven saturation. And I've actually brought an oscilloscope with me here so that you could follow along and look at the waveforms. I'm going to play a pure triangle wave here. I'll just get it down to a single oscillator, and you can. That doesn't look like a triangle wave because multi-drive was all the way on. So here we are. That's a clean triangle waveform. I'll just sharpen up the filter there, and you can see. And it's worth noting at this time, I'm actually very, very fond of this particular triangle wave. As they go, sometimes you have glitches or impurities that'll create a sort of a buzzing sound that's always with you and just compromises the purity of the triangle waveform. In this case, it's extremely pure and smooth, and so it just gives you this really singing, lyrical tone. And that's with the filter all the way open, so that we're not hiding anything about the harmonics. I'll switch over. You can hear from this sawtooth waveform that all those harmonics are there for the filter to work with. But we'll go back to the triangle wave. Very pure, good sound. I like it a lot. And I'll just show you here, if you follow along, pure triangle wave. As we turn it up in the mixer, you can see there's a sort of an S curve there. That's the pre-filter saturation happening. This is with no multi-drive, but it is a rich, overdriven sound. It really fattens up your tone. And then as we bring in the multi-drive, we go from a smooth round tone to something that is, it starts to get more squared off. You can see at the bottom there's some distortion. That's asymmetrical clipping. That's a very tube-like sound, similar to what you'd get from a valve or tube distortion circuit. And as you turn it up even further, then we get into symmetrical hard clipping. This is still a basic triangle wave, but you can see it looks totally squared off. And so So you get this continual smooth variation from totally clean to pre-filter saturation. As you turn up the multi-drive, you're getting more and more post-filter overdrive. And this gets into where this differs from the Little Phatty overload circuit, which it does provide a similar pre-filter saturation, but post-filter, it's simply getting louder and then going into a diode clipping circuit. So you get a very fuzzy, stomp boxy sort of hard clipping sound, which is great, but it's a different character. What we have here is the multi-drive is based around a FET transistor overdrive circuit, and which is another classic tone. A lot of stomp boxes use a FET drive circuit. But here it's woven directly into the filter, in between the filter and the output VCA, so that a number of things are happening as you turn it up. You're getting the nonlinear overdrive that's characteristic of the FET drive circuit, and then that's going into an OTA circuit, which is the classic Moog VCAs are all done using OTA, operational transconductance amplifiers, if you must know the acronym. And as you saturate an OTA, it provides its own nonlinear distortion and overdrive that has a very pleasing and warm characteristic. So you're combining this really crunchy driven sound with a really warm, round, organic sound, and you can dial in the balance of, warm, rich, tubby tube sound to crunchy, overdriven, and everywhere in between.
So you can also, you can almost undrive the filter, so you take away...
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. If you back everything off, you can get a very polite, very clean sound that is just very pure with no, no driver distortion at all, and you can absolutely control the level from sonic purity to pure sonic distortion and aggression. So let's get back into a little bit more of the signal path and some of the sonic options that are on offer here. This is, of course, fundamentally a 2-oscillator monosynth, which gives you a very different range of sound than you can get from any combination of a single oscillator. And so we'll bring in oscillator 2 and go into some of the special features that we have here. So we're going to start just with 2 triangle waves, and the slow phasing that you can get between oscillators is just a really rich characteristic part of this sound. There's really just infinite gradation of frequency between the two, and as we start to bring in some higher harmonics, I'll set these to 2 sawtooth waveforms, and very briefly I'll back it off. There's one unmodified sawtooth. It's a very fat, rich, good sound, but it's very static. As soon as you bring in that second oscillator, you start to get this rich, rolling, warm, phasey sound. I'm going to open the filter up all the way so you can really hear it. And so right now, we have 2 oscillators that are almost exactly in phase with each other. I'll try to get that as close as I can. There we go. And one thing that's worth pointing out is simply how well these oscillators track one another. Far from being sterile, the ability to precisely control the pitch and frequency of the oscillators gives you the freedom to be just as detuned as you want to be, just as phasey as you want to be, no more and no less. So it's really not a liability to have very stable oscillators. It just means that you can add your own phasing instability to exactly the amount that you want, instead of being forced to put up with, let's say, an amount of detuning and phasing that you have absolutely no control over. In a good situation, it's wonderful. In a bad situation, it's nerve-wracking. Here, we just give you the control that you need to have exactly the amount of detuning that you want. And one of my favorite features related to that is the oscillator 2 beat frequency control. And this is something a little bit new. By being able to control the tuning of these oscillators so nicely, we can specify, and I've now gone under the hood, we'll go into that in just a moment here, we can now specify an amount of detuning in hertz, in cycles per second. So we can go from basically no beating at all to, that's about maybe 2 hertz of beating. And on a normal volt per octave analog synthesizer, you can dial in a certain amount of beating at one frequency, and then if you play up an octave on the keyboard, the beating is twice as fast. You play up another octave, it's 4 times as fast, and it starts to sound really discordant. With this linear detuning that we have, you have exactly the same amount of beat frequency anywhere you want to play on the keyboard, which really is just, it opens up these incredibly rich tones that are playable across a wider range than you'd get on a typical analog synth. So that's a lot of detuning in the bass range. And so again, I can't demonstrate, well actually I can demonstrate what that would sound like on a conventional type of frequency detuning. We'll set up a certain amount of detuning here, and then I'll play up an octave. And you can hear it just gets sour. You really can't, you know, if you really like the way it sounds down here, you can't play up 2 octaves because it sounds totally different. So that oscillator 2 beat frequency really opens up a range of phasing, beating, slightly detuned sounds that are so much more playable than they would be on another synth. So that's been a revelation for me as I've been getting in here and designing sounds. I really like that new feature. Another new feature that adds in with that, this is also found on the Moog Minotaur, is you can sync. This is not now, we're under the hood, so we have some shifted panel functions, which I'll get into in more detail. Right now, this hard sync, when you're normally in the shift mode, this is VCO gate reset, I'm calling it. It's also called note sync on the Minotaur. What it does very simply is it resets the phase of the oscillators to 0 on each new note. And so you can control the evolution of the detuning from exactly in phase with one another to just exactly as detuned as you want. And it means that if you're playing, say, a staccato bass line, that the energy of your notes doesn't rise and fall with the phasing of the oscillators. You can get a very consistent, crisp attack. I'll just dial in an example right quickly. So we'll get a nice 2 oscillator bass sound here. And there we go. We've got a nice slow phase, and I'll just play.
Yeah, you can hear it go.
Yeah, you can hear each note is a little bit different than the next. And if we turn on, I'll detune it a little bit more even. There we go. We'll turn on hard sync. And you can hear that every note has a very consistent punchy attack. And that's very useful for, for tight bass lines and sequenced percussive kind of music, dance music, anything like that. It's really good to be able to rely on the weight and consistency of your bass line. And so to be able to combine the richness of analog VCO oscillators with the precision of the gate reset of the oscillators so that your phasing is precisely under your control, it's just a whole new sound, and it's really very, very nice. So let me get into a little bit more detail about this shift mode that I'm describing and the under-the-hood features. This is one of the really distinguishing characteristics of this versus similar small monosynths is that not only do you have so much hands-on control directly on the panel, but on the one hand, all of these knobs are sending and receiving MIDI, so you have total MIDI automation of every aspect of the sound. Every parameter that affects the sound, you can record into your sequencer, you can write automation and play it back. And so you never have to fumble with a patch sheet or figure out how to set up your sound. It's right there. And additionally, we're able to deliver a full-featured control panel and also equally many parameters that you can access just a few button presses away. So that if you want to, from the control panel, get into advanced programming features, it's not directly on the panel, so it doesn't scare away someone that doesn't want to do those things. But if you're a synth scientist and you want to get in there, it's very easy. Additionally, all of the parameters, both on the panel and under the hood, are going to be easily controllable from an editor that will ship with the Sub Phatty, and that editor will be plug-in, both VST and audio units and Pro Tools formats, and also a standalone editor. So, if you don't want to program it from the panel, you'll have absolutely complete editing control and also preset librarian functions on your Mac or PC computer. On the subject of presets, of course, every sound is just a few knob twists away, so it's very easy to set up, but for live performance, we have 4 banks of 4 presets each, or 16 presets available live from the panel. And you can set those up yourself save any sounds that you want into any of the banks and patches, so that for live performance, you have a starting point for 16 different types of sound right there under your fingertips. And then, of course, from each preset, you can take and tweak it live and go in any direction you need to. So the way I view it is this is perfect for people to use to set the key that they want to play in, the basic starting sound that they want, sort of basses and leads, and then from there it's all hands-on and you can adjust the sound to suit the moment.
One thing I did notice is that there didn't be an obvious pulse width modulation parameter. Is it able to get through to that kind of thing via
Absolutely. This is actually the most control over waveform modulation that Moog has offered in one of their monosynths so far, in that, of course, you have Bob Moog's original continuously variable wave shaping circuit. So this gives you your classic pulse width modulation between a square wave and a skinny pulse wave, but really you can use the same kind of waveform modulation to modulate smoothly all the way from a triangle through to a pulse, through to a very skinny pulse. And you can control that from an LFO for your classic pulse width modulation. On previous Moog synths, it's been the case that all of the oscillators are modulated, their waveforms are modulated at the same time. On the Sub Phatty, we do give you the ability to modulate only oscillator 1, only oscillator 2, or both. So you can get those classic PWM bass sounds where you've got one unmodulated oscillator and one that's being modulated. And so it's very easy to set up. I'll show you here. The under the hood section, you have a number of controls on the panel that are remapped. So here, it's a simple, you press bank 4 and activate panel. That takes you to under the hood. You can see that this is blinking here to show you that you're there. In the envelope section, you have full velocity control of both the volume and the filter envelopes, and that's mapped to the sustain knob in shift mode. So you can go
similar to the Minotaur kind of approach.
Right, yeah, similar to the Minotaur approach, where we're repurposing knobs for a logical second purpose. So you have anything from full velocity control to no velocity control, and you don't need to go into an editor to modify it. You can just reach in here on the panel and grab it. Additionally, you have a control for the volume of your external input is tied to the noise volume knob. You have the VCO2 beat frequency, which I already showed you, and that's on the frequency knob here. VCO gate reset, and in the modulation section, you have the shifted function of LFO gate reset, which means that it re-triggers your LFO to start on each new note. And that's really good for sequenced wobble sounds and all kinds of good modulations. Now, for the truly advanced features, we have the bank and patch panel is actually like a numeric entry keypad. So there's a really quick 1 or 2 button combo for any of these extra parameters that you want to modify. So for example, if we want to change the LFO rate on the panel, the LFO rate goes from 0.1 hertz to 100 hertz, but that's medium range. Under the hood, you can change that to low range or high range, where you can actually go from 0.01 hertz, or 10 minutes, I believe that is, per LFO cycle, to high range, where the LFO will go up to 1 kilohertz, or 1,000 cycles per second. So you really do have a lot of range going, into the sub-audible, all the way up into the audible range for your modulation.
So you've really thought about a lot of the kind of how to access those parameters via...
Absolutely, and I'll let you in on a little secret. I read all the forum discussions I can, and I look at people's gripes and complaints, and the ones that are sensible that I haven't thought of before, I say, that's brilliant, all right, let me work out a way that you can do that. So absolutely don't be shy to ask for what you want. As our Minotaur customers already know, we release a piece of hardware that has a wonderful feature set, and then as we develop and invent new features, we're able to provide free firmware updates for all of our customers that unlock and add these new features. So we've done what we can to think up the best ways to easily access all the parameters that we've thought of so far, but one of the other advantages of having a full-featured analog system that then has powerful digital control is that if you think of a new way that you want the circuit to behave, as long as you can control it with voltage control, as long as you can think up a way to do it in the firmware, then you can continue to expand and add to the capabilities. So we really, we put players and sound designers first, and we listen to their feedback and try to design our gear to meet their needs.
So just to be clear, the filter is low pass only, there's no multi-mode or anything like that?
It is low pass only, however, like the other Phatty synthesizers, it does have filter pole selections. So it starts out as your classic 4-pole low pass filter, but you can switch to 3-pole, 2-pole, or 1-pole modes, which changes the effective roll-off. A 1-pole filter attenuates sound at 6 dB per octave, and it adds 2-pole is 12 dB per octave, 4-pole is 24 dB per octave, and the result of that is that you get more and more high-frequency sound coming through as you reduce the number of filter poles, and what that gives you is an edgier, more aggressive sound. So a short way of thinking about it is that even though it's only a low-pass filter, it's still sort of a sonic chameleon, because you can go everywhere from very smooth, buttery, classic 4-pole sounds to really modern, aggressive 1-pole filter sound effects. And the multi-drive also, as you let more harmonics through the filter, that gives the overdrive more to chew on and more to tear up. So you can really start to bring out more of a snarl. Let's listen to that for a moment, actually, because there's something very interesting with this filter. As you add the multi-drive and the resonance, you get a scream, a sort of a distorted sonic scream that's very new to the Moog vocabulary, I think. So we'll start to turn up the resonance here to where we can hear it. So that's your basic classic resonance sound. As we turn up the multi-drive, you can really hear those individual harmonics popping out. We'll crank it up even more. You know, that may be more aggression than you need a lot of the time, but it's there, and it's there in a way that is new for a Moog synth. That's really very nice. So let me just dial in a few sounds here, as I know folks are very curious to hear what this thing sounds like in its different modes. And you can do everything from very low sub bass to really cutting leads. I'll start in the bass department. Right now, this is 2 oscillators, and they're synced to each other. I'll add the sub oscillator. I'll play up a little bit. We turn down the drive. It's very easy to just leave the drive cranked, and because it's so juicy and so fulfilling sounding, but you run the risk if you do that of missing the very smooth, liquid, lyrical sounds that this machine can also produce. So we'll go up a little bit in frequency, add a little bit of vibrato. A little bit of glide rate. And of course you can smoothly change that into a sawtooth lead sound. We'll take it into the square wave. Now I'm going to drop the filter poles down to 1-pole mode, and we'll dial in some more sort of dirty, aggressive sounds. And this is done very easily in the under the hood mode. You get in there, dial up the filter poles, and then it's set using these keyboard keys, 1, 2, 3, 4 pole. And so you can actually adjust that while you're playing and hear the difference. So there's a 4-pole sound, and that's 1 pole. You can actually play that as an instrumental effect if you like. But once we're in 1-pole mode, now we've got sort of maximal grit from the yeah, and it's just a... And that's just basically with no modulation. That's simply using the grit and growl of the filter, which is a very useful effect in itself. But if you really want to get sort of nasty and aggressive with it, there's a lot you can do with the modulation section as well. The LFO can actually track the pitch of the keyboard, if you like. And so if you set the LFO up into the audible range and then have it tracking the keyboard, you can get some really interesting effects. I'll just... Another really nice feature of the LFO, in addition to being able to go up into the audio range, you can also use it to track the keyboard. So at high rates, you can get some really nice pitched audio modulation effects that way. And at low rates, you can simply use the LFO as a really dynamic modulator that's following the keys. So here it is at a nice low rate of speed. You can hear it giving us a nice wob, wob, wob. And another thing about the LFO, this is a perfect setup to demonstrate. Right now, we are not re-triggering the LFO with the keyboard. So some of these notes, they have a really sharp attack, and some of them, the LFO is dipping right as I attack, and I might not want that effect. So you can turn on LFO gate reset. And there you go. And so now if we turn that up into the audio range, there's the sound without LFO.
Custard and cream kind of sound.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and so the sonic effects that you can get in the combination of audio modulation, resonance, multi-drive, the basic tone of the oscillators themselves, it's really just about infinite.
Wow, there's a lot there. I mean, I'm sure we could go on for...
We absolutely could. And if you have any particular questions, I don't want to leave any stones unturned. Noise in the audio, back in the mixer section, where it rightfully belongs here, and that opens up a lot of possibilities for sound design, including some really nice percussion sounds, as well as, of course, your classic sort of risers and white noise sweeps. It's not actually a white noise. We've been trying to figure out what to call it. It's a little bit redder than pink, maybe a magenta noise, you might say. But what the spectral balance of the noise has been shifted to have a little bit more body and punch to it. If you want to cut into the body of it a little bit, you can add some resonance.
Oh, so it's quite flat. Yeah, it's quite colourful.
Very colourful and flexible. Yeah, and the key is the amount of resonance and drive that you use with the noise. It's not just one static sound, no pun intended. It's extremely variable and flexible, and lets you get everything from little thin sweeps and stabs to a really huge roar. And of course, once you start adding in envelope modulation, you also have a whole range of percussive sounds as well. And the envelopes are very sharp and punchy and crisp, which is also key for percussion synthesis, especially sort of kick sounds. And there are multiple ways to synthesize your own classic kicks using the Sub Phatty. There's the well-known filter kick, where you use the resonance of a 4-pole filter. We'll turn off the noise, and that's a pure sine wave, which you can then sweep with the envelope to get a classic kick sound. And you can control the depth of it, the duration. You can tune it to the pitch of your track with the keyboard following. And as you add distortion, the multi-drive again makes for really huge, weighty sounds.
Great.
And
I think we're going to hit our YouTube limit. There's a lot to this. So
yeah, there absolutely is. This is the sort of thing where to really go in depth, it takes spending time with it, or a multi-part sort of hands-on demo. This is, of course, brand new, and as we progress, we'll get more and more in depth and show off more tips and tricks for how you can get any kind of sound you want out of this machine.
And they can come and see it at the NAMM booth as well.
Absolutely. Come to the NAMM booth. We're in booth 5300 in Hall B. If you're in Anaheim, California, please come see us in person.
Just one more thing. I mean, when are you shipping, and when's it going to be? What's the
Absolutely. We're ramping up production now, and we're planning on shipping in early March. And at the time of shipping, we will be shipping with the plug-in editor as well. So right out of the bat, you'll have infinite preset storage on your computer, full automation plugged right into your sequencer, and the synthesizer itself, of course, ready to go beginning of March. Thank you very much.